When I opened my eyes, I didn't see the ceiling of a hospital or the faces of doctors. There was no light, no sound, no pain, just darkness. A silence so thick I could feel my soul trembling inside my chest. Then I heard something, crying, screaming, the sound of agony, not just from one person but from many, from everywhere. It wasn't a dream. It was too real, too heavy, too terrifying. I called out, "Hello, is anyone there?" But no one answered. My voice didn't even echo. It vanished into the void. And in that moment, something inside me whispered a question I could not escape. Elias, if you were the only one in your family that God had chosen to break the curse, to carry the burden, and to lead them to salvation, would you be willing to face hell first alone? I collapsed. I didn't know if I was still alive or already gone. But deep inside, I knew I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. My name is Elias Navarro. I'm 36 years old. I'm from Tarlac, Luzon. For years, I worked as a bartender in Makati, then in Bangkok. I lived for the night, for money, for pleasure, for noise that helped me forget the emptiness in my chest. I mocked religion. I laughed at Christians. I told people God wasn't real. When my grandmother Rosa, the only faithful person in our house, passed away, I let my heart grow cold. I thought it was strength, but it was blindness. The night of the accident, I was on a late delivery. It was past 2 a.m. in Bangkok. The streets were quiet. I was half awake checking a message on my phone. Then headlights, tires screaming, a loud crash, silence. Next thing I knew, I was no longer in my body. I saw myself on the ground bleeding, broken, surrounded by strangers shouting in Thai. A man tried CPR, but I was floating above, watching everything, feeling nothing but terror. Then something pulled me downward fast. The air changed. Time disappeared. The light vanished completely. I fell into a place I didn't believe existed until that moment. The screams returned, voices crying, begging, regretting. But no one saw each other. No one escaped. And I realized I was not the only soul trapped in this darkness. Then a voice, not from outside, but from deep inside my being. It wasn't angry, it wasn't harsh, but it shook every part of me. You ran from me your whole life, Elias, but I never stopped calling your name. I knew that voice. It was Jesus, and I wasn't ready to meet him. Not like this, not in judgment, but he was real, and I was not ready. If you're watching this right now, I want you to ask yourself something. Why you? Why now? Why this message? Maybe, just maybe, you are the one God is calling in your family, the one He chose to wake up first. Not because you're perfect, but because you're willing. I died that night, but what I saw next changed my life forever. I saw my body lying still on the pavement, twisted and broken, with blood pooling beneath my head. My eyes were half open, but they saw nothing. People gathered around me shouting in Thai. One man pressed down on my chest. Another held my wrist. Someone was trying to revive me, but none of them knew that I was already gone. I was above them, floating, watching my own death from the outside. I didn't feel pain, but I felt terror. Coldness surrounded me. I tried to cry out, but no sound left my lips. I had no lips. I had no voice. I wasn't in my body anymore. I was just awareness, a soul disconnected. Then I felt something pulling me from behind. It wasn't physical, it was spiritual. Not wind, not gravity, but a force stronger than either. It grabbed my soul like invisible chains and began dragging me away from my body, downward, rapidly. I couldn't resist. I had no strength, no anchor, no control. The city disappeared. The people vanished. I fell into silence. But it wasn't peaceful. It was thick and heavy, like a tunnel made of fear. Everything became dark, then darker. Not just the absence of light, but the presence of something evil. And then the screams began. First one, then many. Hundreds of voices. Male, female, young, old. All of them were in pain. Not physical pain, but anguish. The sound of souls regretting every moment they rejected God. I could hear them begging, crying, pleading for another chance. I passed to a place where I saw figures, some curled up on the ground, some reaching out, some trapped in complete silence. Their eyes were empty. Some had no eyes at all. Their mouths opened, but no sound came out. Others screamed so loudly that I could feel it inside me. One man looked straight at me and said I used to sing in church, but I never surrendered. Then he disappeared into the dark. I saw a woman rocking back and forth, repeating over and over, God forgive me, God forgive me. But the tone in her voice told me she knew it was too late. Then I saw a teenage boy, his face frozen in horror. He cried out again and again, Mom, please, help me. But no one came. And somehow I knew she was still alive. She just never told him about Jesus. The air around me wasn't air, it was emotion, guilt, shame, terror, hopelessness. Every step I floated downward, the weight got heavier. But there was no floor to stop it, just deeper and deeper into the sorrow. I asked myself, why am I here? What is this place? But even that thought sounded small compared to the noise around me. And then in the center of it all, I heard a voice. It didn't come from the darkness. It came from within me, calm, firm, gentle. It said, you were not sent here for punishment. You were sent here to see what few are allowed to see, because I want you to choose. Everything stopped. The cries faded, the shadows stood still. For the first time since my death, I felt warmth. A small light appeared in the far distance, not bright, not sudden, but steady. It pulsed softly as if calling me. And with that light came something I hadn't felt in years peace. That's when I remembered her. My grandmother, Rosa, the one who raised me when I was young, the one who read the Bible out loud every morning, the one who never went to bed without praying for my soul, even when I cursed her faith, even when I told her God wasn't real. She never stopped. She prayed for this moment. And in that silence, her name echoed inside me like a whisper from heaven. Rosa. She was the only one in our family who walked in the light, the only one who never gave up on me. And now here I was floating between life and death, and her love was still reaching me. I wanted to cry, but I had no body, no eyes, no tears, only a soul. And it was breaking, because I knew then without question she had been right all along. God was real, hell was real, and I, Elias Navarro, was seconds away from being lost forever. The light that appeared in the distance slowly grew brighter. It wasn't sudden or blinding, it was warm, like sunlight breaking through a cold morning after a long violent storm. As the light drew closer, the screaming behind me began to fade. The darkness couldn't follow me anymore. Something was pushing it back, something stronger. Then I saw her. She was standing there just beyond the edge of the light, her back straight, her hands gently folded in front of her. She looked exactly as I remembered. Her white hair was tied neatly. She wore the same simple dress I had seen her wear every Sunday morning when I was a child, and in her hand she held her old Bible, the one with pages torn, filled with notes, and marked with years of tears. I whispered, "Lola." She smiled, a smile that held both joy and sadness. I fell to my knees, not because someone told me to, but because my soul couldn't stand in front of her. Not after everything I had done. "I'm sorry," I said, choking on the words. I didn't have a mouth to speak. I didn't believe you. I turned my back on everything you taught me. She stepped forward slowly. Her hands touched my shoulders, but it wasn't physical. It was spirit to spirit. And I felt it. Love. Real love. Unshakable. Unchanging. She didn't say anything right away. She just looked at me with eyes that still remembered the little boy she used to pray over. Then she spoke softly. "You thought I was wasting my time with all those prayers. You thought I didn't know what I was doing. But Elias, I knew exactly what I was doing. I wept." She continued. "I asked God to visit you, to wake you up before it was too late. And he heard me." Then she looked toward the light behind her. I turned, and for the first time I saw him. He wasn't a figure made of fire. He wasn't holding a sword or seated on a throne. He stood there in silence, not forcing, just waiting. And when his eyes met mine, everything inside me trembled. I didn't feel judged. I felt known, fully, completely. Every memory, every sin, every moment of rebellion and pride, it all stood there with me in that space. And yet he stepped closer. My grandmother stepped back. And then
You ran from me, Elias, but I never left you. I was there in every dark night. Every time you laughed at me, I was still calling your name.
I couldn't lift my head, but his voice lifted something heavy off of me.
I didn't bring you here to condemn you. I brought you here to choose, because mercy is still available, but not for long.
I asked, trembling, "Why me?"
Because someone stood in the gap for you. Someone prayed when you wouldn't. Someone believed when you doubted. And because I still have purpose for your life.
Tears fell inside my spirit like a flood. I looked at my grandmother. Her eyes were full of peace. I turned back to Jesus. "I don't deserve this."
No one does. That's why it's called grace.
Then he stretched out his hand. I didn't hesitate. My soul reached for him, and in that moment, the darkness that had surrounded me shattered. The screams vanished. The cold was gone. All that remained was light, warmth, and the presence of a Savior who still wanted me despite everything. And then everything went white. The light faded, not because it disappeared, but because I was being taken somewhere else. I felt movement beneath me, not walking, but sinking. The warmth I had felt just moments ago began to fade again. Not fully, but enough for fear to return. I thought I had been saved. But this was different. This was part of the vision. And God was showing me what I had to see. I was being led into the place where souls go when mercy is rejected, when truth is mocked, when time runs out. This wasn't like the images we see in cartoons or in paintings with flames and devils. This was worse. Because there were no chains and yet everyone was imprisoned. I saw the first group. They looked like young adults, stylish, modern, but their faces were twisted with sorrow. They held glowing phones that played scenes of lust, deception, and violence. One woman screamed. No one told me it mattered. Everyone was doing it. But the videos kept playing everything she had watched, shared, laughed at. She couldn't escape it. Judgment had become a mirror. Then I saw a mother clutching the spirit of a lifeless child. She wept with deep agony, repeating, "They told me it was just a choice. that it wasn't life yet. But now she knew the truth, and the truth was too late. Further in, I saw men in business suits, hollow eyes, proud postures. Some shouted about success, others mocked God. Their mouths began to bleed as they choked on their own words. One said, I built churches, but I never knew Jesus. It was all image. His suit turned to ash, and his face to dust. These weren't unbelievers. They had religion, but no repentance. They honored God with words, but their hearts were far away. Then I saw a row of teenagers. They sat in silence, wrists, scarred eyes empty. On their backs were words written in fire unloved, forgotten, addicted. These were souls who had taken their own lives, believing death would bring peace. But peace is not promised outside of Christ. As I stood there overwhelmed, I heard a whisper that thundered through the atmosphere.
This is what the enemy has done to a generation. And yet they still mock my name in songs and movies in their own homes. They trade truth for trends and call evil good and good evil.
I fell down, unable to stand in the weight of what I was seeing. The pain was not only theirs, it had entered me. I cried out, Lord, why are you showing me this?
This is why I called you Elias, not just to be saved, but to sound the alarm. Tell them, tell the Philippines that the time of mercy is still open, but the door is closing.
I looked back at the sea of souls. Their voices began to rise, not in chaos, but in unity. They chanted one word again and again. Too late, too late, too late. And then silence, heavy, final, unbearable, until once more his voice broke through.
You have seen what few dare to believe. Now I will show you the way back.
The light returned, but this time it surrounded me completely. The darkness was gone. The screams faded like a memory. I stood in a space I couldn't explain, bright, weightless, still, but alive with truth. Before me stood Jesus. There was no distance between us now. His presence filled everything. My spirit trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of understanding. I had seen the lost. I had felt their despair. And now I was face to face with the one they had rejected. He looked at me not as a judge, but as someone who had always known me. Everything I had done, every lie I told, every moment I cursed his name, he saw it all, but his eyes still held mercy. Then he spoke.
They have turned away from me. They sing my name in worship, but their hearts chase the world. They honor me with their lips, but their lives are filled with compromise. My people have become distracted, not by suffering, but by comfort, not by trials, but by entertainment.
I listened silent. I knew he was speaking of my country, of my generation, of the very people I had laughed and sinned with. He continued.
Philippines was meant to be a light, a nation of prayer, a land of worship. But the fire is fading. The youth are lost in fantasy. The churches are filled with noise but empty of repentance. They have the Bible in their homes but not in their hearts.
I broke inside. I had been part of that blindness. I had ignored the voice of truth. I had mocked the very faith that once covered me. But now standing here, I saw what he saw, and it crushed me. Jesus stepped closer.
You asked why you were chosen. You were not the strongest, not the purest, but you were the one who could be broken. And from that brokenness I will raise a voice, not just to warn, but to lead, not just to preach, but to live.
I looked down ashamed. But what if they don't listen? I asked. He answered without hesitation.
They did not listen to me either, but still I came, still I loved, still I died. You are not responsible for their response, only for your obedience.
The air around me shifted. I saw flashes of people, young and old, some in churches, some in bars, some in prison. some scrolling through their phones alone at night, all of them waiting for something, all of them hungry. And then I saw myself on a stage, but not for performance, in a prison, but not bound, in a street, but not lost, speaking, crying, warning, loving, praying. It wasn't fame, it was purpose. Jesus looked at me again.
Tell them what you saw. Tell them hell is real. Tell them time is short, but also tell them I am still here. I still forgive. I still save.
Then he extended his hand once more, the same hand that held the scars of crucifixion, the hand that reached through death for me. I placed my soul into his, and he whispered one final word before everything faded.
Go back. Tell the one who is still listening that this is their warning, and this is their mercy.
Everything went quiet, not dark, not empty, just still. I didn't see clouds. I didn't see stars, only stillness and peace. Then slowly, I began to feel something again. A weight, a sound, a pulse, then pain. Sharp, real, immediate. I opened my eyes to a blinding white light above me. Fluorescent, cold, sterile. I heard voices speaking a language I didn't understand. I was back. I was in a hospital room in Bangkok. A nurse noticed me and screamed. She ran to the hallway and called for the doctor. My body was aching. Every part of me felt heavy, sore human again, but my spirit was overwhelmed. Tears began to stream down my face, not because of the pain, but because I was alive. A doctor rushed in. He checked my pupils, my pulse, my breath. His face froze in disbelief. He looked at the chart, then back at me, and said slowly in English, "You weren't breathing for over 3 minutes. No heartbeat. We almost gave up." I could barely speak, but I managed to whisper I saw him. He looked confused. Who I closed my eyes. Jesus! He stepped back and said nothing, just wrote something on his clipboard. But I didn't care what they thought. I had seen the truth. They moved me to a private room that night. I was monitored constantly. My body had survived an accident that should have ended my life. But something inside me had changed more than my bones. I laid there for hours replaying everything. The screams, the darkness, the souls I had seen, the words of Jesus, the eyes of my grandmother. Every detail was burned into me. And then I remembered the instruction. Go back, tell them, sound the alarm. But I didn't even know where to begin. Then the door opened. A familiar face stepped in. Marvin, my childhood friend. The one who used to go with me to church when we were kids. The one who had become a young pastor in Pampanga. I hadn't seen him in years. He sat down beside my bed, eyes already tearing up. "I don't know why, bro," he said, "but I was praying for you all night. I felt something strong. I felt like you were in a battle." I broke down. I grabbed his hand and cried like I hadn't cried in years. I told him everything, every moment, every image, every word. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, nodded, and wept with me. When I finished, he placed his hand over my chest and prayed. Not a long prayer, not a dramatic one, just real. "Lord, you brought him back. Now use him. Make his life yours." In that moment, I surrendered fully. No more running, no more questioning, no more pretending. I wasn't the same man who had mocked God in bars. I wasn't the same soul who laughed at sermons. I was Elias Navarro, rescued, redeemed, sent. I spent the next weeks recovering, physically slow but spiritually awake. I started reading the Bible every day, not out of obligation but hunger. I wanted to know the one who had saved me. I wanted to understand the heart of Jesus. Soon Marvin invited me to speak at his church, not as a preacher, just as a testimony. When I stood on that stage, my hands shook, but my heart burned. I told them what I had seen, what I had felt, what I had heard. Some cried, some sat in silence, some came forward for prayer. That night, something opened, and I knew this was just the beginning. I didn't survive by luck. I wasn't spared by chance. I was sent back on assignment, and I had a story that needed to be told. 2 months later, I landed in the Philippines. The air felt different. Not because of the weather, but because I was different. I had left Tarlac years ago, looking for freedom. I came back carrying a mission. My first stop wasn't home, it was the cemetery. I stood alone beside my grandmother's grave. I placed a simple flower on the stone and whispered, Lola, your prayers brought me back. I saw him. I met him. And now I understand. A soft breeze passed across my face. I closed my eyes. It felt like peace. Back home, everything looked smaller, but the burden inside me felt bigger. I didn't just come home to rest. I came to testify. Word got around quickly. Some people were curious, others were skeptical. Isn't he the one who used to drink every night? Wasn't he the guy working in Bangkok's bar scene? They weren't wrong, but they didn't know what I had seen. I started attending Marvin's church regularly. He invited me to share my story again. This time, not just in church, but in small gatherings, in streets, even in places I used to party in. Some doors opened, others slammed shut. But I kept speaking. One afternoon, I visited a group of young men in a barangay near our town. They sat on plastic chairs, smoking, scrolling on their phones. I recognized myself in them. I didn't start by preaching. I just told the truth. That I had died. That I had seen hell. That Jesus had shown me mercy. They listened. Some laughed, but one boy, maybe 19, stared at the ground the entire time. When it ended, he came up to me and whispered, Can I talk to you about what I've been hiding? That was the moment I realized this was no longer about me. It was about who was listening. I shared in schools, in addiction centers, even in jail cells. I didn't need a pulpit. I didn't need a microphone. I just needed to be faithful. For the first time in my life, I felt truly alive. Not because of applause, but because of obedience. One night, while preparing for a small gathering, I asked God why me. I'm still not qualified. And I felt the same voice from that place of light say, You weren't chosen because you were perfect. You were chosen because you were willing. I knew then that I could never go back to the old life. Not even a little. Not even for a moment. I deleted my old contacts. I stopped hiding my past. I gave my full story messy and miraculous. Some nights I cried alone. The images I saw still haunted me. But every time I cried, I also remembered the ones I saw in that place. The ones who no longer had a second chance. And I promised myself I would speak until my voice ran dry. People started calling me the former bartender who came back from the dead. It didn't matter what they called me, as long as they heard the message. I wasn't a preacher. I wasn't a saint. I was just a man who had met Jesus in the place between heaven and hell. And I came back so others wouldn't have to go there. This was my assignment. This was my new life, and I had no plans of turning back. If you've made it this far, I need to tell you something important. You're not watching this by chance. You didn't click on this video because of the title or the thumbnail. You're here because God is trying to reach you, just like He reached me. I'm not better than you. I'm not more holy. I was lost, blind, dead inside. But God gave me a second chance, not because I deserved it, but because someone had been praying for me. Maybe you don't have a grandmother like I did. Maybe no one is praying for you. Then let this be the moment where everything changes. What I saw was real. Hell is not a metaphor. It's not a story to scare you. It's a place, a destination. For those who reject the voice of God over and over again. But here's the good news. You still have time. You're breathing. Your heart is still beating, which means God hasn't given up on you. The question is, have you given up on Him? I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are watching this from. Maybe you're in the middle of sin right now. Maybe you were just about to give up. Maybe you're smiling on the outside but falling apart inside. Hear me. This is your wake-up call. This is your invitation. Jesus is not just a story. He's real. He loves you. And He's calling you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're valuable. You might be the only one in your family who still believes. The only one who feels the weight. The only one who prays quietly when no one else is looking. That's not weakness. That's calling. That's the Spirit of God speaking to you. And today you have a choice. You can scroll past this. You can shake it off like nothing. Or you can say, Lord, I'm done running. I want to come home. And when you do, I promise you this, He'll meet you right there, in your room, in your car, in your tears, in your surrender. He's not far. He's never been far. He's just been waiting. Then I heard Him again. The same voice that saved me in the darkness, that rescued me when I was lost.
I am still calling the broken. I am still raising the forgotten. I am still saving the lost. If you hear my voice today, do not harden your heart, for this is your mercy.
Now it's your turn. Will you answer? If something inside you is stirring, don't ignore it. Don't wait for the next tragedy. Don't wait until it's too late. Right now, where you are, just say it. Jesus, I believe. Jesus, I need you. Jesus, save me. And He will. You're not watching this by accident. You're watching this because God is calling your name.